Totem Confidence Podcast. I'm your host, Ahmad. Happy to be back with you. I want to thank my man, Dennis, aka Precise Thoughts, for the use of this track. And I used a different track for this episode because it's going to be kind of a spiritual episode, and I want to be respectful. And so, I hope that you would endure or indulge with me this different message. And it's a personal message, but it will resonate, I'm sure, with many of us. Because in life, we go through disappointments, we go through ups and downs, and sometimes we feel like life ain't fair. I mean, I've been there many times. And I believe part of my attraction to this work is I know the broken parts of myself that need to be healed. And sometimes while people look to me and draw from me and look to me from strength, the strength isn't mine at all. The strength is from a higher power. I'm just a conduit, as you are as well. We all draw from that eternal source, whatever you call that eternal source. I'm not interested in arguing the nuanced differences between people's belief systems. You know? But I want to give a different message today, and I'm inspired to do this from events in my life. And I hope that there's something in it for you. Today's message is called Joseph. The reason I call it Joseph is because one of my favorite biblical as well as stories from the Holy Quran is about the prophet Joseph. Joseph had 11 brothers. And Joseph was different. He was a different type of guy. And I hope, I'm going to use modern language, so I hope that you're not offended by me saying it in my way. Joseph had 11 brothers. And he had this vision. And I'm going to I'm going to kind of blend the Bible and Quran because they slightly differ. But I'm going to kind of synthesize it. Joseph had this vision, and he said, I saw 11 stars and the sun and moon making obeisance to me, bowing down to me. In the Bible, he said he had a sheaf of grain, and it was taller than the other 11 sheaves of grain, and the tall one, the smaller ones were making obeisance to the taller one. And that represented him being in a superior position than his brothers. In the Bible, it drew the envy of his brothers. They didn't like it. In the Quran, his father says, hey man, don't share your dream or your vision with your brothers. Surely the devil is an open enemy to man. I always thought that was interesting. These are the children of the prophet of Jacob. But he says the devil is an open enemy to man. So that those forces, that envy, that jealousy, these forces are in us. And if they're not controlled, they can make us do some deadly and ugly things. Envy is a ugly sin, and I'm gonna tell you why. And I don't mean sin, like I said, I'm not coming from a religious point of view. But when you focus your attention on somebody else's success, and it makes you feel sick to your stomach to see somebody else have something, that's a sickness. Because all that we get is from that universal source. It may come through other people, but if you're upset at somebody else for what they have, you're really upset with the Creator, with the Most High who actually gave it to them. So Joseph said, I saw 11 stars in the sun and moon bowing down to me. His brothers devised a plan, according to the Quran. Hey, Dad, let Joseph come out with us and play, And the dad was suspicious, according to the Quran. It's slightly different in the Bible. I'm going to bounce back and forth. The father was suspicious, according to the Quran. And they said, no, we'll take care of him. We got him. So they took him and they devised a plot to kill him. But in the Bible, Reuben said, no, don't kill him. Let's just throw him in this well. And maybe we could sell him and get some money from him. So they threw him in the well and they left him. When they came back, some Midianites, I believe, they sold him to some Ishmaelites, if I'm saying it correctly. And he was brought into Egypt. And in Egypt, he was brought into the house of one of the people in the army of Pharaoh. He was a captain in the army of Pharaoh. And the most interesting thing when I was reading this today in the Bible, it said that God was with Joseph. That's so interesting because here's a brother that's sold into slavery by his own brothers. And it said, the Bible says, God, the Lord, was with him. How many of us have we been sold into slavery, or in modern day slavery, we locked up? He said, man, well, God is with us. We feel like God is most of us feel like God is abandoning us. But it said the Lord was with him. And throughout the story I was reading today in the Bible, it kept saying the Lord was with him. So he became a member of this household, and the captain put him over the house. Listen, man, you got free reign. Anything that anybody else has, you got it, man. Like, you're in charge. One day, the wife of the captain, she was checking Joseph out. She said, man, Joseph is fine. She desired him. And so she approached him. Hey, man, what's up? What you trying to do? And Joseph's like, nah, I'm good. You know what I mean? I'm not going to disrespect this house like that. I'm not going to disrespect the captain who put me in charge of the house. He's showing me love and favor. And I don't want to disrespect him or disrespect God by doing something with you that would completely be an abomination. When all the men were gone one day, she grabbed him and ripped his robe. I don't know if it came completely off because I wasn't there. Joseph ran away. When he came back, when the captain came back, the woman said, yeah, he tried to come on to me. She falsely accused Joseph. I mean, straight up lied and accused a man of integrity of such a heinous violation. And the captain had him sent to prison. Again, it's slightly different in the Quran because the captain didn't quite believe her. But in the Bible, he said, oh man, you violate, man. I let you in my house and you do this. So he was taken to prison. But he wasn't taken to just a regular prison. He was taken to a prison that held some of the high officials of Pharaoh's household or Pharaoh's kingdom. This is where he locked his people up that violated his laws, the people that were close to Pharaoh. And in prison, again, it said the Lord was with him. Now, think about this. Now, you're in prison, falsely accused. And it said the Lord was with him. I'm saying all this for a reason, man. I hope y'all can indulge with me. So in prison, he found favor with the keeper of the prison. So the interesting thing about this is no matter where Joseph was, he found favor. Or the Lord found favor and bestowed favor upon him and made people admire him and prop him up. So Joseph became over the prisoners of, these are not just regular prisoners. This is the royal prison. And so he came across two people who were in his charge. And they said, hey man, we had this vision and we just see something about you, man. It's something about you, man. And one of them was the butler of the Pharaoh, his personal butler, or he was over all the butlers. And one of them was the chief baker. The butler said, I had this dream that there were three vines. I'm sorry, there was a vine with three branches. And out of the three branches, there came all these grapes. And I grabbed the grapes and I crushed them and put them in the Pharaoh's cup. And I held it and I handed it to the Pharaoh. And Joseph said, yeah, the three branches represent 3 days. In 3 days, you'll be restored back to your position. And you'll be serving the Pharaoh wine. You'll be back and restored. The baker was like, oh man, that was cool. Yeah, all right, cool. Hey, so he felt good. Like, oh man, tell me what my dream meant. The chief baker said, in my dream, I had 3 baskets on my head. And the very top basket was full of all types of pastries and cakes. And the birds came and started eating from the top basket, all the pastries and cakes. Joseph said, well, the 3 baskets represent 3 days. In 3 days, you're going to be hung. The Pharaoh going to hang you from a tree. And the birds are going to eat your flesh. So the butler was going to get out. And Joseph said to the butler, hey, man, remember me, man. When you get back to your job, remember me, okay? Maybe I can find some favor and get up out of here. Tell them what I did for you. But the butler forgot. You know how we do when we need something. We're fully attentive. But when we get on our feet, you know how it is. When we get on our feet, we straight. We kind of forget the people who put us on or who helped us. You know. So the Pharaoh at that time, he had this dream that was troubling him. And in the dream, there were 7 healthy, fat-looking cows, and they were grazing. And then 7 ugly, like emaciated, skinny cows. And the 7 skinny cows came and ate the 7 fat cows. I mean, just think about that. That's a nasty scene. First of all, cows are vegetarian. So you know it's not literal. And then he had 7 big, healthy stalks of corn with all these healthy, big ears of corn in the stalks. And then 7 decimated, withered-looking ears of corn. And the 7 withered, decimated, emaciated, I don't know if you can say that about corn, but they ate the 7 fat, healthy stalks of corn. And so Pharaoh said, man, let me call all my magicians and all my wise people to the kingdom. And he called them all, and none of them could interpret the dream, man. We don't know. Man, your guess is as good as mine. And so the butler, and this was 2 years later, the butler said, oh, you know what, Pharaoh? I was locked up with this man, Joseph. And he told me, and you know, the guy you hung, you know, the bread maker, like we both had a dream. And he told me I would get out and be back in my job. And he said the bread maker was going to get hung. And that's all that happened. So Pharaoh said, oh, yeah? Yeah, his name is Joseph. Hey, man, go get him. Bring me that man. So they went and got Joseph out of prison. And they shaved him and put nice clothes on him. And he came to the Pharaoh. And the Pharaoh told him his dream. The 7 fat, healthy-looking cows being devoured by the skinny, ugly, emaciated-looking cows. And the 7 healthy stalks of corn or ears of corn being devoured by the 7 withered, decimated ears of corn. And he said, oh yeah, Pharaoh, so the 7 fat cows represent, it's going to be 7 years of prosperity that we're going to have in Egypt. We're going to be good. We're going to be looking good for 7 years. And the 7 years is going, he said it means the same thing. The 7 healthy stalks of corn with the fat ears on there, that means the same thing. We're going to have 7 years of prosperity. But after that, there's going to be 7 years of famine that's going to be so bad, it's going to make us forget all about the 7 years of prosperity. And the Pharaoh said, or Joseph said, you need to find a wise man to put over and put a plan in motion that, can protect us from this famine. And the Pharaoh said, man, if I knew a man like, oh, you know what? Hey, you, since you were wise enough to give me this vision or interpret my vision, I'm going to put you over everybody but myself. Now, Joseph was favored. And sometimes when we're favored, it goes to our head. When he was a boy and he had his coat of many colors, his dad gave him. He was unique. He was special. He was gifted. But sometimes that can make us a little cocky. I'm not saying this about Joseph. I wasn't back there. But I'm bringing it into modern times. Sometimes when we find favor in the eyes of God and in the eyes of people, in the eyes of leaders, in the eyes of authority figures, it can give us a little attitude of entitlement. It could give us this attitude of arrogance where we feel we're special. And you are special, but we're only special because God has allowed things to happen, but it's not to arrogate ourselves over people. Joseph had this vision, that everybody was going to bow down to him. The 7 stars and the sun and moon represent his 11 stars, and the sun and moon represented his 11 brothers, his mother and father, all bowing down to him. Now imagine, you know how it is with your parents. Your parents, I don't know about y'all, but my parents were great people. I didn't see myself as not even equal to them, let alone superior to them. So sometimes when we have the favor, it takes us a while to learn how to move with that without rubbing it in people's face. So sometimes, even though you're a good person, there's something for God to take you through to learn how to manage that good. It doesn't mean you're not going to go through things. It doesn't mean I'm not going to go through things. So he went from having this coat of many colors and being a favorite son to his brothers throwing him in a pit or a well and being sold into slavery. And then the Bible said the Lord was with him. If the Lord was with him, the Lord could have stopped that from happening, right? So sometimes when we're going through things, our anger is displaced because the people who are taking us through things are just simply the vessels that God is using to teach us something. Now that's hard because people are going to do us wrong in this world and have done us wrong. And we going to do people wrong because ain't none of us, holy. So Joseph goes from that to going into the captain's house, and even though he was sold into slavery, he became over the house. So again, finding favor. Then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the man's wife tries to sleep with him. Can you imagine that? Things are going good, and just out of left field, you're falsely accused. You ever been falsely accused of something? I have. Nothing that heinous, but it's not a good feeling. It stirred up feelings in me that weren't hatred, but were close. The woman falsely accused him, and he got imprisoned. And the Bible said the Lord was with him even in prison, where he found favor among the keeper of the prison. So his life was up and downs. And so it is with our lives. You can go to church, mosque, temple. You can pray. You can meditate. You could be a good person, but you're still going to go through injustice. We're still going to go through things. And those things are really preparation for something greater if we don't allow it to take us down. The Holy Quran says, do not let your hatred of a people make you act unjustly. It's hard not to hate people who are taking us through hell. And it don't have to be a grand thing. You could be in a relationship and you think everything is well, and you love this person, and you think this person loves you, and then out of nowhere, I don't want to be with you no more. How can somebody who said they loved you, who you shared so much with, completely cut that faucet off? It's a hell of a thing to experience. Or you can love someone and give them your all, and they betray that love. How does that make you feel? So we all go through things, but how we come out on the other side is the determining factor of who we really are. Because see, it's easy to be good. It's like shadow boxing. You could be a good shadow boxer. I could look like Mayweather. But when I get an opponent in my face, then that's the test of my real skill. So we can look real holy in church, in the mosque, and at work or whatever. But only when we're tested do we know who we really are. So the Holy Quran said, do men think they will be left alone on saying they believe and not be tried? We're all going to be tested. But the reason why I shared this story, because it has a personal bearing on me, which I won't get into right now. It's not the time. But I've been lied on. Nothing that heinous, thank God. Been done wrong. And the very people who did wrong to me, I've had to treat them with nothing but respect. That's a test. When the Bible says, love your enemies, pray for those who spitefully use you. It's easy to say that in church. It's easy to say that reading that from a book. But in real life, that's a test. That's hard. But then we got to look at ourselves, because there's somebody that we have wronged that we tend to sweep under the rug. So while we think it's so unfair that people are doing us wrong, let's check our own record. Let's check where we let people down. And so this is a part of life. And my main point is the Lord was with Joseph through all of that. God does not desert you or me when we're going through these things. It may feel like it, but he's preparing us. He's toughening us up. It don't feel that way, though. It don't feel good. You can feel deserted. I know that feeling so well. So, to my brothers and sisters who are listening, this is a different show. I'll get back on format maybe next week. Hang in there. God is allowing you to go through what you're going through. It's hard to believe that when you're going through it. But there's always light on the other side. There's always an end to the storm. A storm doesn't last forever. And I'll just make it more practical as I close the show out. If you need help, talk to somebody. If you're depressed right now, if you got insurance, go see a therapist. Talk to a friend or someone that can help and guide you. You're not alone. You don't have to be alone. And if you are alone, as with Joseph, the Lord was with him in his darkest time. The Lord is with you as well. He's with me as well. You know, I'll close this and say, I had a coworker. When I sent out my reports at work, I attached these motivational and inspirational quotes. And she asked me, she said, do you live by this stuff? She said, I save all your stuff. I got a folder I create. She said, I love what you send out. She said, but do you live by this? I said, I'm striving to. I said, but the main person I'm sending them out for is for me. It's a reminder for me. I don't arrogate to myself that I've mastered all this stuff. You know? Life is a journey. Life is ups and downs and the overcoming of our shortcomings, the overcoming of our frailties. Anyway, I won't go on and on. Thank y'all for listening. We'll get back on format, but I had to share this for some reason. I love y'all. See you next week.